Jungle.
Okay. Hi, Alex.
Hello, David. How are you?
Very well, thanks. And yourself?
Very well, keeping safe, thank you.
Brilliant, fantastic. So this is the first of our kind of GCS Connect Leaders series. So congratulations.
Well, delighted to help. Delighted to be here.
I think what we're trying to do with this is really talk to kind of leaders within our network, have good conversations with them, and get their advice, get their expertise on how businesses and leaders are dealing with this current kind of business situation, and how this might link into other business problems and issues they've had in the past. So just for those that don't know, Alex has many years experience in the IT and technology industry. I'm not going to go into exactly how many years. And he is the MD of a business called Westcoast, which is the UK's largest privately owned company. It's headquartered in Thean in Reading, so quite close to where GCS is also headquartered. And they are an IT and electronics distributor for companies in the channel such as HP, Apple, and Dell. We, as a company, have worked with Westcoast over many years, and Alex is someone I know very well, very much respect, seen him talk on many occasions. So this is a great chance to really kind of get an insight into someone who's a real kind of business leader within the UK. So Alex, I'm sure I probably don't introduce you as well as you could introduce yourself. So just want to give people a quick idea of your background, what you've done, and how you've come to be in this position.
Sure. David, I've been in the IT business now for 25 years, having previously qualified as a chartered accountant with EY. And our business at Westcoast is a very fast-growing, very dynamic business, as IT generally is. And we've seen our business grow from something like 600 million when I first joined it 11 years ago now, something approaching £3 billion last year. So this is a business that really is the largest IT business in the UK, really growing at tremendously fast rate. And we're delighted to be able to speak to you and all your listeners today.
Fantastic. Well, it's really great that you took the time. I'm sure it's busy, although we're sat in our quite a few books and stuff, aren't we? So yeah, we've always been reading as well, so that's good. But it's great that you kind of took your time out in your day and that sort of thing. So really, what we're trying to do in this session is understand how leaders deal with business problems. Obviously, we're going through quite a big one at the moment, but obviously where they see positives from these problems, and how that can be used as a way to kind of grow business once we kind of come out of this situation. But I think the first question I have is from your side, what sort of kind of business issues in your career have you dealt with in the past? Maybe not comparable, but that you've had to deal with, but you feel are quite major.
Well, perhaps I thought about this when you said that you were going to ask this question, and I thought that the first and biggest issue that we had in the IT industry, if you remember, was the millennium bug.
Oh, yes.
And everything was going to fall out the sky. Everything was going to stop. IT was going to just totally crash the world. And of course, nothing happened.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I think the IT channel had a lot of trust building to build up again as a result of that particular scare story.
Yeah.
And that taught me a couple of things. I think the first thing is to make sure that you don't overhype the situation. You speak absolutely fairly and honestly as to what you believe. And if you don't know, you say you don't know. Yeah. But actually, that's really one of the biggest issues that we dealt with. When it comes to the 2008 crash, again, a very different story. Because actually at that point, more people invested in IT, and the IT has a very different recessionary cycle, perhaps to some other businesses. So what you found is that whilst people let staff go, they invested more in machines. And actually, I can see the same thing happening as a result of what happens in this particular crisis. And people are investing heavily in IT still at this very moment.
Yeah, as the workplace changes, as people have to work now in short term, but also as they're thinking about it long term, I guess.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. And I think that it's very hard to see where you're going at this point. It's driving a car extremely fast on a foggy road. You know where the cliff is.
Yes.
So yeah, it really does feel like that. But it's almost impossible to anyone to have prepared for this particular event. I was asked the other day to say, was your business continuity plan capable of coping with COVID-19? And I'd say that's like having a business continuity plan for aliens landing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think anyone foresaw this coming. What it has done, of course, is tested everyone's BCPs extremely hard. And I think that we're going to see a bit more robustness come in the future as we come out of this and I come out of lockdown.
Do you think that there's quite a lot of businesses out there that potentially, I mean, we're both, with GCS and Westcoast, are both businesses have been around quite a while and been through quite a few cycles. Do you think there's businesses out there that maybe weren't prepared or didn't think about this as something that could happen?
Well, I'm certain no one was prepared for the extent of what has happened. And one can only see that, and actually will be a benchmark for that, because the level of product that Westcoast has shipped during the month of March doubled. So the number of laptops that we sold has doubled.
Good news then.
Well, there is a bit of good news in that. Yeah, and clearly you're seeing all the things that attach to home working being enormous demand at the moment. No matter how it gets to you, there's been huge demand for that. And of course, office products have shrunk. Nevertheless, just vast quantities of laptops. And of course, we had supply issues from China because, of course, they were on lockdown earlier. And that led to even bigger demands on Westcoast as having the largest stock of this product in the UK. And of course, we really made sure that we are able to prioritise the NHS business and government business first and foremost during the course of this, which led to even more demand from businesses who are trying to boost up their own abilities to be able to get all their staff to work from home. And that has been a huge challenge for our business and all our customers' businesses too, really to make sure that we enable the entire country to be able to get this done. Just imagine, however, if we didn't have all this great technology available.
No, exactly. Yeah, so we wouldn't be having this conversation, Alex. and have you had to do anything particularly kind of innovative? Have you had to kind of lead any, like, okay? I mean, I heard an interview with someone the other day where they were talking about blockchain resourcing PPE equipment for the NHS. I mean, have you had to do anything particularly different or just work harder?
I think it's been really working harder. And dealing with enormous orders. Really prioritising orders. And it's a bit difficult when perhaps you placed an order with Westcoast, you know it's coming, and then your order gets diverted, even though you're desperate for this product, largely because the NHS want it. And of course, that has been extremely difficult to be able to manage that during the course of March, as well as making sure that we manage all of our workforce remotely, other than, of course, the heroes that we have in our warehouse. That's been absolutely amazing for our business and kept our business moving, kept the whole supply chain going. So there's been lots of learnings on the job. I think one of the things that I'm beginning to feel, however, is that over the past 4 or 5 weeks or so, that we've been managing in the now, trying to manage almost on a day-by-day basis, largely because these things are moving on a day-by-day basis. We're beginning now to look at what we're going to do for a slightly longer period as we come out of this in a slow cycle. But I certainly think that most of us will be working from home for the majority of the next year.
Yeah, I think, they talk about, second waves and flattening the curve, but until there's a full exit strategy or a vaccine, then it does seem this is, I mean, it's an overused word at the moment, the new normal. So do you feel there's anything you've learned from previous downturns, recessions, business problems that you've used in this particular cycle? So, obviously you've got a bit more experience, not to be rude, the things that you understood from last time that you had to roll out within the business quickly.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that I would point out. The first thing is make sure that you are honest with your staff and tell you how bad it is and where it's bad and where it's good. And don't try to gloss over issues that you may have. Act early And therefore, if you had to furlough staff, and I commend the government's scheme at the moment, but if you've had to furlough staff where businesses dropped off, make sure that you do that, because actually you've got to focus on the things that you can control, not the things that you can't. And the things you can control are your own costs. So make sure that you've done that. The second thing I think is make sure that you pay your suppliers, your essential suppliers, because without them, your business certainly will be in trouble. So yeah, I really would focus on that. And that's been something that we've really reiterated for cloud providers, for a range of different providers, and ourselves back to our own suppliers. It's very, very important that that we keep going through this.
I mean, again, that's we've talked a lot about your business and how it works, and become the margins involved and that sort of thing. And some other business might take the other point of view of, not to play, to kind of work with suppliers to stop that. Why do you think it's particularly important to have that? No, we must keep to those standards.
Well, I think the first thing is that you ought to also look about where the money is coming from this, and who's got the money. The banks have got the money, the government's got the money. Yeah, that's really where you go and get your money from. If you get it from your suppliers, eventually, of course, the whole supply chain will stop. And we are in a supply chain business, and it's therefore very important that our customers pay us on time, their customers pay them on time, and we pay our suppliers on time to make absolutely sure that this all works and carries on spinning. Because without that, of course, there is a danger that we're going to be in a much worse situation.
So we won't be able to get
supply
out.
Chains are really important to make sure that everyone is doing their bit to do that. And the government, by the way, have been outstanding at making sure that they pay very quickly to their customers, allowing that supply chain to carry on spinning well. Yeah,
that's right. I think there's definitely been some quick and difficult decisions made at government level with regards to kind of business protection. I think it's been kind of useful. So that's good. We applaud that too. Just on a kind of lighter note, obviously we're both here at home in our bookline studies, which is quite nice.
Yes.
I mean, how are you finding? I would assume for both of us, I know we're mostly in the office. How are you finding kind of working from home, the kind of positive or the negative sides of it? So.
Well, I don't miss the commute, that's for sure. I live in London, so therefore commuting to Reading and anywhere else or going to see a customer is no bad thing. Nevertheless, I do really miss the social interaction that we have within our business. It's a very open plan business. We don't have an open door policy because there aren't any doors in the place. So it really feels, I miss that sort of energy that the office gives us all. But what we try to do is to recreate that across the IT and the Zoom calls and the Teams calls that we've had, to try and keep the energy high across the entire team throughout this particular crisis. And we'll have to continue to do that for a lot longer. So I'm doing regular weekly calls with everyone, telling them how it is, telling them the good and the bad, and making sure that we have a bit of fun every week as well, with some quizzes and some fun things to do to try and keep the staff all together. Because there's one thing I think is really important, is to make sure that we go through this together, try not to lose any jobs within the business at all, and come out of it, hopefully a stronger business in the end. However, you said I love popping upstairs and going to my home office. That feels a lot easier to do.
Yeah, that's right.
Those early morning calls that.
I have a joke with my wife that I'm off to work now, love, and then I'm at work now. So it usually takes me about an hour and a half to get backwards and forwards in and out of London. But this is a much easier life.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And actually, what's going to be interesting is how much working from home will become a new norm for everyone, both within our business and across our customer base as well.
Yeah. And what other ways? I mean, you're obviously a leader of. How many employees does Westcoast have?
So they have about 800 employees within Westcoast itself, and the group has around about 1,600 across various.
And you're quite a hands-on manager, so I know for a fact that you know a lot of these people and work quite closely with people and are integral within the business and very integrated into it. Obviously now separated. Have you found you had to change your leadership style, your management style to make sure you're getting the best out of people?
I guess what I've really done is try to make sure that I don't change it that much, and I come across as someone who is calm, is focused on getting the business through this, making sure that I give good leadership and feel confident in what I have to say. They believe in what I have to say, and as I said, I don't gloss over things that perhaps I would do if I was on stage somewhere.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, there's been a change. Perhaps that leadership style has become even more honest, and I think it's important as a leader in this particular environment to probably have a healthy degree of pessimism as opposed to great optimism at this point. It's quite encouraging, and I would generally describe myself as an optimistic individual. But actually, I think it's important to make sure that you are try to look at the worst that could happen and prepare for that worst, but clearly hoping for the best.
Particularly, I assume when you're working with salespeople who are also optimistic. So,
well, they're always the big sale's always coming next week, of course. So,
yeah, that's right.
and I really get that, by the way. And we employ something like 200 salespeople in that 800 strong workforce that we have at Westcoast, and keeping them all, making sure that they're speaking to their customers. One thing that I really, really want them all to do is, what we find is it's quite obvious that you start spending your time typing emails, and you find yourself in an email situation because you're not really interacting all the time. And we've really tried to encourage all of our sales staff and everyone within the business to pick up the phone to each other, internal customers, and most importantly to their customers, and just ask the question: how are you? How are your family? And what can I do for you? And what can Westcoast do better for you at the moment? And just asking those questions. One of our key values here at Westcoast is being agile and flexible. And what we've really tried to do is still try and maintain some of that agility. That has been extremely hard to do, but that's the kind of work that I want to be able to do, to say, customers, challenge us with a problem and we'll try and fix it for you.
Yeah. And you mentioned about people like your heroes, as it were, the kind of guys still working in the warehouse and that sort of thing. Has that proved kind of logistically challenging? I'm sure it has, but to deal with
the most important thing, the number one thing for any business leader to do is to keep your staff safe. It's almost the number one issue on any board meeting agenda, is the health and safety of the company. And therefore, the first and most important thing that we can do is manage a degree of social distancing within our warehouse, making sure that they have the appropriate PPE to be able to carry on managing and come into work every day. Clearly, we've had to manage some sickness and some very difficult sickness situations, both within the warehouse and outside the team. But nevertheless, the key thing is to keep the business going as best we possibly can and keep our warehouse staff safe and being able to manage and do all the things that we normally do. And we've only lost, I'd say, about 5% of our capability at this point. So in terms of getting things out next day, there really has been a very, very strong ethos within the business to try and keep our normal service levels up to where they always have been. And we haven't lost that much of it. So I'm really take my hat off to everyone in our warehouse team and all our logistics teams, and particularly our logistics partners that have worked so tirelessly to keep our whole country alive. So it's been a fantastic thing.
I think it's very interesting, isn't it, I think I heard on the first virtual Prime Minister's questions that they were talking about the heroes, the key workers, and people that don't usually get mentioned, people work in supermarkets, lorry drivers, that sort of thing, It's not generally those sort of people that are celebrated, is it?
Well, I think I would certainly say that within our own business. And I think it's been an absolutely magnificent effort from them and from our warehouse leadership, our logistics leadership teams that really have done a wonderful, wonderful job to just try and make sure that we all feel as though that we can deliver for all of our customers, business, small customers, individuals all the way across the nation. And so I think that they are extraordinary heroes of our business, but actually of everything that we're going through at the moment. And obviously we go to the NHS first and foremost, who are caring for us all, but the people that are really behind the scenes, making sure that they keep the supermarket stocked, deliveries flowing, have really been our warehouse workers and our truckers, and it's been a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So coming out of this, obviously part of what we wanted to do with these conversations is, yes, there are difficult situations at the moment, but as in all these things, we talked about experience, things do improve and things do come back. So what, if any, positives do you see coming out for out of the business landscape, both for the country maybe, but also maybe for West Coast?
Well, I think one of the things that we've really seen is that there's going to be a lot more remote management, remote customer engagement than there has been before. And that's going to help the world, I think, in its environmental issues. And you're seeing perhaps our biggest environmental cost at West Coast is the fuel that we all use traveling backwards and forwards to customers and to conferences and that sort of thing. So I think that is going to be a big, big plus for the world. The second thing I think is that people are really going to focus on how important their IT is. And the IT industry, which of course we sit at the heart of, is absolutely going to be more critical perhaps than it's ever been. And is that we probably already thought it was utterly critical. So I think people are going to look at this and go, I'm going to make my business continuity plans more robust, my data capability more robust, and people are going to invest further in IT. So I take you back 6 weeks. If you can remember that far back, David.
Yeah, well, yes. It seems a long while ago. So yeah.
We were all talking about AI. We were talking about robotic automation. We were talking about 5G. Well, all of these things are going to get accelerated as a result of this. Because people realize that all of these technologies are going to be critical for the success of their businesses in the future. And this whole thing has probably brought this into sharp focus at the moment. Although, as I say, I think a lot of people have been managing in the present, just making sure that they've got themselves organized to be able to go forward now. But that's beginning to change. I'm beginning to look at what's going to happen in the future now. And I think I would put myself in that category too, is that we're beginning to try and say, how do we come out swinging?
Yeah. And you talked about that pessimism. I think that's important. Are you now planning, like you mentioned earlier, for this to be how it's probably going to be most of the time over the next 12 months? So I have to plan my business around that.
I think the answer is yes. And there are a number of things that's going to be positive for our business. So as an example, I think a lot of businesses will have rushed into their business continuity planning, and therefore there'll be a surge of product that they need in order to make their business continuity plans and people working from home more robust. So we're going to see a second surge, I think, as people come back to work and IT managers begin to try and improve everyone's lot there, and you're going to be more investment in end user compute there. I also think there's going to be a vast amount of education focus, largely to make sure that the government don't leave any student behind. And this big focus now that we've got on a one-to-one scheme to make sure that there is no deprived student left behind. Well, West Coast is sitting at the heart of that entire effort at the moment.
I saw that about the laptops, getting to kind of certain kind of disadvantaged children and families getting those laptops there and that sort of thing.
And that's exactly right. And there will be a lot of them. And West Coast, as I said, will be delivering to all schools and all of those products on behalf of a number of vendors and resellers over the course of the next few months to try and get that done. And we're doing it quickly. So really exciting project, but one that is going to be extremely difficult, and we're really going to put a lot of effort behind that.
And you mentioned before about AI, you mentioned about the kind of the cloud itself, which I know West Coast has invested kind of quite heavily in, even things like kind of video communications and that sort of thing, which has really become quite big now, maybe not so much before. What other kind of innovative technology, what types of innovative technology do you really think is going to help businesses survive and thrive in this new normal?
Well, I think one of the things that I would particularly pinpoint is robotic process automation, and taking and making sure that mundane tasks are being done by smaller groups of individuals and larger IT processes. And you're going to see a considerable amount more investment, I think, in this area on a go-forward basis. I also think that the analysis of all the data that you've got to make sure that if you're running a company, you've got to be able to inspect what you expect, and therefore you've got to be able to do that from home. So making sure that the data is available to managers to be able to do that managing and making sure that their staff are doing what they need to be done, I think there's going to be a huge investment in that particular area as well. And I can also see, finally, some of the end users absolutely transforming their business digitally, increasingly so, and that will require quite a lot of computing power, both at the edge and centrally as well, and in the cloud. So this sort of cloud to data center to edge computing, you're going to see an explosion in that. And I'm really going to see some really exciting projects, I think, come out towards the end of the year in that particular area.
And then the security elements around that, obviously, because, you know,
it's going to be more important. Absolutely right. You got to make sure that you don't overly scare people and make sure people pay for it. But yeah, that's one of the things. It's a bit like selling insurance. There is a degree there of making sure that you are slightly calmer in this and don't overhype your the security threats. But clearly, making sure all of these things are secure is still a critical element to everyone's business.
And obviously, GCS work in the recruitment sector. We worked with you over many years. We work in many different locations. How do you think that the recruitment, and they call it the war for talent, maybe there won't be a war for talent anymore, but how do you think that will be affected going forward? How do you think the recruitment market will come out of this as a client, as a customer?
First comment is it's going to be tough because I think people will not recruit large volumes of people. Although I do think there will be key talented individuals that will be critical, and the IT industry, as I've already said, will be a critical element within this, because great IT talent is always hard to find, and making sure that more people go through this will be a really important thing, and therefore recruitment companies bringing that talent through into companies. I think you'll see there is some recruitment there. But the overall recession that we're going to have to go through is going to be very difficult, I think, for the recruitment companies, and people. A lot of people will struggle for jobs. I think the worst hit, by the way, will be our young people. If you think about, most people's apprentice schemes are now being cancelled as people retrench in their business. There's very little take up of graduate schemes and of school leaving schemes at the moment. Of course, a lot of our current GCSE students aren't going to be taking their job, and I think you're going to see them stay at school in order to do their A-levels in the future. What's interesting, of course, is that all of those who are planning a gap year, what are they going to be doing? So, there's going to be a really big impact, I think, in that kind of area of business. So I think there's a real issue for our young people on a go-forward basis this time. And I certainly would say that actually coding schools and people retraining people into the IT industry is going to be one of the absolutely fundamental things that is very successful afterwards. So I'd encourage GCS and all recruitment companies to look at how that they do some training within that recruitment element in order to make sure that they're placing really qualified individuals into businesses, and IT training is going to be clearly one of those things.
With the skills that are needed now, and have been needed really for the last kind of 10 or 15 years, really. So
yes, finally, someone might believe me, David.
That's right.
Exactly what's required right now. And I go into schools very regularly, and I talk to them in terms of their careers about how the importance of IT is. And I think IT and the IT curriculum in schools is a lot to blame in terms of making it not exciting and innovative. My goodness me, it's needed more than ever at the moment, more than ever.
Exactly, to drive that. I don't know if you've heard the joke, I don't know if you've seen the joke where they say, who drove the digital transformation in your business? Was it the CEO, the CTO, or CV19, ABC? And obviously the answer is probably CV19.
Well, I think that's probably true. And it's going to save the environmental businesses across the world, and also some of the drivers of digital transformation. I'm certain it will be.
Yeah, exactly. And for yourself, I mean, to finish up now, I mean, it's been great talking to you, and I could do it all day, really. But what if you were to give kind of 3 key pieces of advice to other business leaders, other people that maybe are unused to this situation, that look at a big company like Westcoast and think, how can I deal with this? What would be your 3 key pieces of advice, maybe that you're relying on yourself at the moment?
So the first thing, I think, is be honest with your staff. Tell them how it is. Communicate and communicate and communicate again. So much more regular communication. Encourage them to communicate with each other, and make sure that you are really bringing your entire company with you, so that you can stay strong as a whole business unit and hopefully keep all the jobs secure. That's what I would say the first thing. The second thing that I would do is that I would make sure that you focus on things that you absolutely can control, i.e. your costs, and really make sure that you are focused on cash and your costs, and make sure you come out of this as the best you possibly can and utilize all the government schemes that you can to make sure that you preserve cash within your business, because the more you have, the more flexible that you will be able to able to come out of this in a different place and keep going for a longer, no matter how long this goes on for. And finally, and the most important thing I think that I can say is, don't panic and look after yourself, look after your family, and really make sure that you are being true to yourself. You're working hard, but also making sure that you take some time for yourself, because it is pretty stressful looking after a very large workforce through a very stressful time.
Yeah, I mean, I took some holiday myself in the last few days over Easter. I don't know if you do it, so holiday to the back garden, if you know what I mean. But are you planning to do that? Any big holidays planned in the next 4 weeks?
Well, I'm afraid not for me, and we've tried to make sure that everyone takes their holiday at the time that they booked it, really. My holiday is not booked till September, so I'm hoping to be able to go on it.
Fantastic. Well, Alex, thank you very much. It's been great to speak to you, and I will speak to you soon. Good luck.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to speak to you all.